Today's poem is by Anne Boyer, and it is on Anne Boyer's website, anneboyer.com. The poem is called What Resembles the Grave But Isn't. Always falling into a hole, then saying, okay, this is not your grave, get out of this hole, getting out of the hole which is not the grave, falling into a hole again, saying, okay, this is also not your grave, get out of this hole, getting out of that hole, falling into another one. Sometimes falling into a hole within a hole, or many holes within holes, getting out of them one after the other, then falling again, saying, this is not your grave, get out of the hole. Sometimes being pushed, saying, you cannot push me into this hole, it is not my grave, and getting out defiantly, then falling into a hole again without any pushing. Sometimes falling into a set of holes whose structures are predictable, ideological, and long dug, often falling into the set of structural and impersonal holes. Sometimes falling into holes with other people saying, this is not our mass grave, get out of this hole, all together, getting out of the hole together, hands and legs and arms and human ladders of each other to get out of the hole that is not the mass grave but that will only be gotten out of together. Sometimes the willful falling into a hole which is not the grave because it is easier than not falling into a hole really. But then, once in it, realizing it is not the grave, getting out of the hole eventually. Sometimes falling into a hole and languishing there for days, weeks, months, because while not the grave very difficult still to climb out of, and you know after this hole there's just another and another. Sometimes surveying the landscape of holes and wishing for a high-quality final hole, sometimes thinking of who has fallen into holes which are not graves but might be better if they were. Sometimes too ardently contemplating the final hole while trying to avoid the provisional ones. Sometimes dutifully falling and getting out with perfect fortitude, saying, look at the skill and spirit with which I rise from that which resembles the grave but isn't.